Bullied, invisible girl genius Uka got splashed by the most popular boy at school right at the beginning of the term. Despite doing nothing wrong, Uka had to apologize to them. She excelled in middle school and could have attended a prestigious high school, but she hesitated. During her confusion, a blonde, handsome boy inspired her to make a decision, leading her to this underperforming high school. Early one morning, Uka saw Miura and his group gathered together. Unexpectedly, two boys walked over, feeling overshadowed by Miura's blonde hair. Without saying much, Miura shook his bottle of honey lemon soda wildly, then opened it intending to spray them, but they quickly ran away. Uka, standing behind, got drenched instead. Miura's friend Ayumi quickly came over to care for her and asked other classmates if they had a towel. It was Uka's first time receiving such concern from classmates. She looked at Miura, who apologized nonchalantly, confusing Uka completely. She then ran off to change into her spare gym clothes. Uka came to this school hoping for a fresh start. She had been bullied in middle school, where girls would pour water on her just because they disliked her. Although she got soaked again, she was happy because it was Miura who did it. She planned to actively make the most of her high school days, hoping the teacher wouldn't notice she was the only one wearing a gym shirt. However, the teacher did notice. But since Miura, the center of attention, also wore a gym shirt, Uka didn't seem so out of place. Before high school, Uka had already known about Miura from a distance since the winter of 9th grade. After school, Uka's parents were particularly concerned about her life at school, feeling it was filled with problematic students. Her dad hoped Uka would agree to transfer, but she refused. Her parents doted on her, making Uka feel overly pampered, which she blamed for her being bullied. However, she had decided to change herself, starting from the next day. The next morning, she arrived early at the classroom, which was empty. Uka took the opportunity to practice greeting others. Just as she said, "Good morning," Miura walked in, leading to an awkward moment. Unexpectedly, Miura responded and even called out her name. Uka was too shocked to speak, but Miura slowly taught her how to pronounce it. This brief interaction thrilled Uka. During class, the teacher asked Ayumi to answer a question. Unable to respond, she was told to stay after school, although she could ask a friend for help. Uka knew the answer but was worried Ayumi might think she was overstepping, as they weren't friends. However, determined to change, Uka passed her notebook to Ayumi, who read the answer aloud. The classmates applauded, praising Uka's intelligence. After class, Ayumi specifically thanked her and invited her to change classrooms together. Before they could leave, Uka's middle school classmates spotted her and called her by her old nickname, Rock. They were surprised to see the academically excellent Uka in such a school, speculating she must have failed to get elsewhere. They shared how Uka was amusingly stoic in middle school, just standing there like a rock, much like now. Unable to escape this nightmare, Uka ran out. Now everyone thought she was a dropout, as no good student would attend their low-ranked private school. Uka reverted to her middle school self, her newly built confidence shattered, avoiding Ayumi and others. Alone in the library, she involuntarily wrote "must change" in her notebook, only to hear Miura's voice. Miura commented that her desire to change was causing too much pressure, almost like a curse on herself. Surprised, Uka quickly became happy just to share the space with Miura. Hearing familiar voices from downstairs, she saw her old bullies and ran down, only to find her shoes thrown in the trash. Uka told herself she didn't care, as caring would hurt more. Miura, unable to watch silently, asked why she didn't seek help from others. Uka retorted, asking whom she should ask for help. If she had attended the prestigious high school, her life would be stable, but she chose this path. When applying for schools, her teachers had said her grades would easily secure her a spot in a top school. Yet Uka felt that just changing environments without changing herself was pointless. She had hesitated between two schools, preferring the so-called worse one because she was struggling internally. Accidentally bumping into those people, they mocked the ugly uniform of the prestigious high school before walking away. At that moment, Miura, holding a bottle of honey lemon soda, appeared in front of Uka. He pointed to the underperforming high school and told Uka it suited her better because he was also planning to go there. After speaking, he left with his friends. This was the first time Uka had met such a handsome boy who was also kind to her. Years of pent-up grievances were released, and Uka cried uncontrollably. Eventually, during the entrance exam for the prestigious high school, she chose to give up and enrolled in her current high school instead. Although Miura might not remember her, to her, that moment meant everything. It was her first crush. With the courage Miura had given her, Uka went to the supermarket and bought a bottle of honey lemon soda. On her way back to class, those same bullies stopped her, demanding she buy them snacks. This time, Uka didn't remain passive. She took out the bottle of soda, opened it, and sprayed them. One of the boys shoved her to the ground. Miura, who had been watching, stepped forward with his friends standing protectively behind Uka. He crouched down and asked Uka to repeat the phrase he taught her the day before, asking for help. Uka remained silent, and Miura sighed impatiently but continued to patiently teach her the pronunciation. Finally, she spoke the words. Miura didn't let her down and scolded the bullies. Seeing they were up against someone tougher, the bullies turned and ran. Uka then realized that the people who had bullied her for so long were actually cowards. Miura told her to stop crying about it as it was blocking the way, especially in the street. Uka's eyes suddenly brightened. Miura remembered that day too. The curse that had bound her seemed to be lifted this spring. Miura, as the most popular guy in school, naturally had many young fans. Uka heard a few girls discussing him as soon as she arrived at school. Given the vast difference between them, she found it hard to believe that yesterday's events were real, or that Miura had actually waited just to hear her say good morning. Overwhelmed, Uka shouted out loud, determined to change and not be as reserved as before. Despite her resolve, she remained motionless during physical education class, remembering how classmates had previously called her a nuisance. Yet seeing everyone else having fun, she wanted to join in. Miura noticed this and asked Ayumi to help. Soon the basketball was passed to Ayumi, who unexpectedly passed it to Uka and cheered her on. Uka then dribbled past several people and scored a basket, surprising everyone and earning their praise. Uka was able to make the shot because she had visualized it in her mind many times. Ayumi told Uka that Miura had instructed her to pass the ball, making Uka feel grateful to him once again. However, Miura had already left and bumped into Uka's father talking with a teacher. Her father had come to check on the school and realized it was better than he had expected, with everyone seriously engaged in their classes. After class, Ayumi and Satoru curiously asked Uka why she chose this school. Uka explained that it had many things she admired. Everyone seemed happy and the environment was free and healthy. Tomoya added that it was a great place to enjoy school life and asked what Uka planned to do here. Uka said she wanted to wander around after school and not go home until the moon was out, aiming for a life completely different from her past. However, Miura shattered her fantasy by questioning if she really thought she was suited for such a life before leaving with some girls. Uka's fragile confidence was broken again, and Ayumi and the others quickly followed Miura, puzzled by his sudden harshness towards Uka, but Miura offered no explanation. Meanwhile, Uka began to doubt herself internally. Although she had managed to change smoothly over the past few days, that didn't mean her other wishes could also be fulfilled. Just then, Uka heard a loud commotion downstairs and found out someone was causing a scene and threatening to call the police. Elsewhere, Miura and his friends noticed that the same people who had bullied Uka were whispering something. It turned out that one of the girl's delinquent boyfriend had come to the school to help her regain face. When asked which class Uka was in, the girl not only revealed Uka's class, but also mentioned Miura's name. Turning around, she found Miura staring straight at her. Realizing Uka was in danger, Miura immediately ran back without hesitation. By then, the thugs had reached the classroom door, shouting Uka's name. Terrified, Uka quickly hid in a closet, but soon guessed it was those bullies. The next moment, two of them found her and dragged her out, demanding she come with them. Frightened and desperate, Uka's only thought was that she couldn't let anything happen to her there. She had many dreams to fulfill at this school, so she called out for Miura, and at that moment, he appeared and swiftly knocked the thugs to the ground. He then picked up a lectern and slammed it down on them, intimidating them enough that they scrambled back to their girlfriend. Just then, other students brought the teachers, forcing the trio to flee. Uka finally breathed a sigh of relief. Miura couldn't help but tease her, joking that her father would faint if he saw what had just happened. Uka realized that Miura might have met her father, which could explain why he had distanced himself from her earlier. Yet now, Miura promised to help her achieve her trivial, silly dreams, but only on the condition she returned to her father afterward. Faced with Miura's sudden stern demeanor, Uka instinctively agreed. Too much had happened in just 2 days for her to process, but one thing was clear. As long as Miura was with her, she could achieve her dreams. And almost instantly, she recognized her feelings. She liked Miura, her first love. In class, Uka couldn't help but gaze at Miura, silently listing his virtues whenever the teacher criticized him. But she knew someone like her shouldn't openly talk about Miura. After class, Satoru came to see Ayumi and noticed her new earrings, complimenting her cuteness, which made her blush. Even Uka could sense something different between them and wondered how Miura saw her. She quickly reminded herself not to overthink. Just being in the same space as Miura made her happy. So, without even greeting them, she went back alone. Uka encountered some former classmates, but they were all busy distancing themselves from her. She didn't feel much about it, as she was used to such treatment. Only if Miura had said something similar would it have hurt her. Just then, Miura and Tomoya showed up, and Miura looked quite angry. He had planned to hang out with Uka after school and had already agreed to help her fulfill her wishes, but Uka had run off on her own. Uka hadn't expected Miura to be serious about his offer and quickly followed him. Though she felt uncertain, Miura was visibly frustrated and vented his feelings, while Uka didn't dare to speak. Tomoya, watching the scene, mentioned that it was rare for Miura to take such an interest in a girl. Uka remembered Miura's words from the previous day. He felt responsible for her since he believed she came to this school because of him, and her hesitation was causing him trouble. Realizing this, Uka no longer resisted Miura's help. However, she couldn't join them for karaoke due to her family's curfew, but offered to walk them to the entrance. Miura asked where she lived, and without thinking, Uka said she needed to cross a pedestrian bridge. Miura then offered to walk her to the bridge, and Tomoya tactfully left them alone. Unsure of what to say, Uka repeatedly thanked Miura, who grew annoyed with her demeanor. Despite others saying Uka was good for nothing besides her academics, Miura pointed out her athletic ability. He reminded her that some things just require trying to realize one's capability. He had indeed initiated their first interaction, but that was just an opportunity. Uka had taken the steps forward on her own. Miura reassured her not to dwell on her past self and told her that even if she was a stone, she was a gem. She should have the resolve to look down on those who troubled her from a higher place. No one had ever spoken to Uka like this. The nickname that once tormented her became a treasure in Miura's words. She resolved once again to never cause trouble for him and shared that she now had new dreams. Miura placed his hat on her, finally showing a carefree smile. They parted ways there, and Uka ran up the pedestrian bridge alone, Miura's words echoing in her ears. She used the hat to hide her tears, determined to act in a way that would repay Miura's kindness. Deep down, she also realized that her feelings for Miura had reached a point of no return. Uka dreams about Miura so often, it's clear her feelings run deep. Unexpectedly, today she was informed by the teacher that the class would switch seats by drawing lots. Uka worried she might not sit next to Ayumi anymore. Remembering Miura's previous encouragement, Uka decided to take a step forward and asked Ayumi to officially be friends with her. Ayumi was confused, thinking they were already friends, but quickly realized Uka felt differently and proudly announced to the class that they were friends. Uka felt overwhelmingly happy. When it was time to draw for seats, Ayumi ended up far from Satoru, and Uka, sitting next to Satoru, offered to swap seats with Ayumi, using the excuse that she wanted to sit closer to the front to hear the teacher better. Ayumi, seeing Uka's effort, agreed without hesitation. To Uka's surprise, she ended up sitting between Tomoya and Miura, surrounded by the class's most handsome boys, which made even her burst into laughter. The next morning, Uka made a point to greet Ayumi in class, which Ayumi found amusing. Tomorrow is a school field trip, and while the teacher was going over the details, Uka was distracted. Noticing her discomfort, the teacher offered to change her seat, but Uka quickly declined, and Miura said it wasn't necessary. Hearing this, Uka was more determined to stay. Then, some boys gossiped, asking if Miura and Uka were together, but both denied it simultaneously. Miura explained that he was just helping Uka learn how to socialize. The classmates were reassured, especially since Uka wasn't Miura's type. Curious, Uka wanted to know what type Miura liked. Realizing she knew little about him, she decided to observe him more closely. Surprisingly, Miura was also paying attention to Uka, even noticing when her worksheet tore and asking the teacher for a replacement, which made Uka's heart race again. However, Miura wasn't a good student, often sleeping through class. One day, the teacher threw an eraser at him, which he caught, earning applause from everyone, including Uka. This made the other students realize Uka was also friendly, not just a strict bookworm. Miura took this opportunity to boost Uka's popularity, telling classmates that being good to Uka was beneficial. Soon, everyone wanted to be friends with her, overwhelming Uka. She asked Miura for advice on how to handle this, but he just teased her, easing her integration into the class. He even assured her, "I'll always be watching over you." Miura had lent Uka his hat, which she had since washed and dried. When Uka tried to return it, she discovered that Miura had disappeared from school. The classmates launched a Find Miura campaign, and Uka inadvertently joined the search. She spotted a bottle of lemon soda in a storage room, pushed the door open, and found Miura asleep on a couch. He woke up startled when she entered, and both were surprised when someone else came looking. Miura hurriedly asked Uka to close the door, and she complied. She asked if he usually disappeared here, to which he admitted he often came to this spot when sleepy. Realizing she had disturbed his sleep, Uka felt guilty, but Miura revealed it was the first time anyone had found him and complimented her for being impressive. Elated, Uka planned to leave and handed back the hat, which he had made sure to wash thoroughly, knowing he always wore it and guessing it was important to him. Miura said it wasn't particularly special, then asked Uka to wake him up later and went back to sleep. Uka sat nearby, unable to stop staring at his face. Suddenly, Miura explained, somewhat shyly, that he wore the hat because his hair got messy when he slept, which made Uka nearly burst into laughter, unable to contain her amusement at his candidness. This was the first time Miura saw her laugh so freely. Uka was happy to be so close to Miura, and after the rest, they went back together. They encountered other students who questioned Miura about his disappearance. He responded that being around people all day was exhausting, but Uka is inanimate, so it's okay. Another girl asked Uka where Miura had been hiding, but before Uka could answer, Miura guided her away with a back pat, signaling her to keep it a secret. Uka found herself increasingly charmed by Miura, feeling warmth where he had touched her back, as if she might sprout wings and fly. Today was the day of the welcoming hike. Uka's mother had prepared a huge backpack for her, drawing comments from her classmates since she was the only one in a sports shirt. Fortunately, Ayumi came over to help deflect the attention. Meanwhile, a girl mentioned that a certain spot on the mountain provided a heart-shaped view through the trees, and seeing it with one's crush could make a wish come true. Upon hearing about the heart-shaped sky view, Satoru immediately invited Ayumi and others to find it. Ayumi, knowing him well, understood that his interest was purely out of curiosity, with no romantic intentions involved. Meanwhile, Miura was surrounded by a group of girls and appeared indifferent, even when he noticed Uka looking at him, making her feel insecure. Deciding to leave, Uka walked alone on the flattest path using a map. When some girls casually asked her for directions, she helped them, realizing they meant no harm, unlike the people who used to bump into her in middle school and ignore it. Now, Uka was happy to assist her classmates. Miura found Uka's sudden happiness baffling. Then, a girl almost fell, and he quickly caught her, causing her to develop a crush on him. However, she was aware of the many competitors for Miura's affection, understanding that her feelings were likely unrequited. Uka felt similarly when she heard people wondering why Miura liked wearing hats. She inadvertently blurted out the real reason, only for Miura to cover her mouth, indicating that it was a secret just between them. Uka was thrilled to have a personal secret with Miura, unaware that someone was already quietly jealous. By noon, everyone was looking for a place to eat their lunchboxes, and some girls searched for the heart-shaped sky. Miura was dismissive of this, but Satoru called him out, revealing to everyone that Miura had visited such a spot alone with a girl before. The boys bombarded him with questions, leaving Uka heartbroken. She reasoned that someone like Miura likely had past relationships, diminishing the significance of their shared secret. After lunch, the group reached a fork in the road. The sign pointed right, but the right path looked more challenging, unlike what Uka remembered. Everyone followed the teacher to the right, and Uka reluctantly joined. This path became increasingly treacherous, and suddenly, heavy rain began. Everyone scattered, but Miura quickly warned them against splitting up to avoid getting lost. At that moment, Uka announced the bad news. They might indeed be lost. Uka, who was leading the way, got everyone lost, which made her feel even worse about the internal struggles she was already facing. She went out alone in the rain to find the path, but was caught up by Miura. In front of Miura, she finally showed her vulnerability, worrying about what they would do if they couldn't find their way back. Miura hugged her to comfort her, but Uka pushed him to the ground, saying she wasn't in the mood for romance. It turned out Uka had noticed a bridge on the map, a new landmark that could help them find their way. Miura quickly ran back to inform everyone. They took shelter under the bridge from the rain. The two girls who had been harsh earlier came to apologize to Uka, who didn't mind at all and even lent them towels to dry their hair and handed out water to other classmates. It was then that everyone realized her oversized backpack was filled with supplies prepared for them. After distributing everything, there was none left for Uka. Miura then offered her his half-drunk honey lemon soda, but Uka was embarrassed to accept it, joking about it being like an indirect kiss. She felt it was all because of Miura's hot and cold behavior, which made her unsure of her own feelings. However, seeing Miura's smile, she couldn't stay mad at him. Unnoticed, the rain had stopped and the skies cleared. They even discovered that the trees around formed a heart shape. By evening, they successfully found the route back and rejoined their teachers and classmates to return to school. On the way, they saw a rainbow after the rain, making Uka feel that the trip was more than worthwhile. Miura even chose to sit next to her but fell asleep almost immediately, only glancing at her once before resting his head on her shoulder. For Uka, it was a bittersweet joy, knowing that a relationship with Miura was impossible, an unattainable, and desperate love. Although not yet resigned to this fate, she knew it was inevitable. Back home, Uka told her parents how enjoyable the trip was. For once, she wasn't lying and found herself looking forward to going to school. To her surprise, when she arrived at school, her desk was piled with snacks, gifts of gratitude from her classmates. Although Miura hadn't given her anything, she didn't mind. Just then, a classmate called her over to tell her that the heart-shaped tree had gotten 300 likes online. Following this, another girl pulled out a photo from Miura's junior high graduation album, showing him before he dyed his hair. Everyone encouraged others to bring their own graduation albums to compare. They suddenly remembered Uka had been bullied in junior high, so they quickly dropped the idea, telling her not to worry about bringing hers. After returning home, Uka rummaged through her belongings to find her graduation album. It was the first time she had opened it, and to her surprise, she didn't look too bad in the photos. Encouraged, she brought the album to class the next day. The girls at the back were looking at pictures of Miura and their classmates from middle school. Among them was a girl named Serena, who was incredibly cute. Everyone was busy discussing their middle school days, and nobody noticed Uka had brought her album. Feeling overlooked, Uka quietly left the room and went up to the rooftop, upset where Miura found her. He chased after her, took the album, and found her photo, commenting that she looked normal and he had expected something worse. Uka explained that she left because she lacked happy memories like sports days or school trips, which she wanted to forget. However, Miura argued that it was these past experiences that made her who she is today, and now she was well liked by everyone. Miura wanted to show her photos to the class, but Uka decided to do it herself. As a reward, Miura gave her a candy. Before she could return to the classroom, Tomoya came looking for her with a girl who had tampered with directions during the trip out of jealousy over Uka's relationship with Miura. After a perfunctory apology, the girl promised it wouldn't happen again. Uka felt that her relationship with Miura wasn't as close as others thought. Unbeknownst to them, it was clear to almost everyone else in the class that they were close. Tomoya mentioned that without Miura, Uka might have been happier. Although Miura had solved many of her problems, he had also caused many. To overcome these issues, Uka needed to move forward on her own, not just rely on Miura. His words made Uka flee the scene. Back in the classroom, she heard that the cute girl, Serena, was Miura's ex-girlfriend, which made her retreat further. Miura seemed so out of reach that she went home and fell ill with a cold and fever. Unexpectedly, Miura and others decided to visit her, having called ahead. Learning she was sick, Uka didn't want to miss the chance to see them but worried about spreading her cold. In the end, Miura told her to rest at home. Uka waved goodbye to her friends from her balcony. Despite everything, she was happy to see her friends over the weekend. A new week started, and the teacher brought in photos from the outing. In most of the photos, Miura looked expressionless, except when he was with Uka, where he was seen smiling. Uka realized this for the first time and immediately blushed. Ayumi noticed Uka's feelings for Miura and immediately promised to support her. Uka didn't deny her feelings and sincerely thanked Ayumi. On the other side, Satoru showed Miura the photos as well. In one photo, Uka looked particularly nice, prompting Miura to comment jokingly that her smile almost melted her face and that she looked cute when she smiled. Satoru was shocked to hear such compliments from his friend, while Tomoya looked worried. Unexpectedly, Uka soon encountered Serena, the girl who had previously dated Miura. She happened to pick up Serena's dropped phone, which displayed a photo of Miura from middle school. Following this, Uka couldn't help but become curious about Serena, learning that she was popular and had dated Miura. Ayumi told Uka that they had already broken up by the time everyone knew about them, and the atmosphere had become awkward afterwards. Except for the two involved, no one knew why they had broken up. With the cultural festival approaching and midterms just 3 days away, the students felt a chill of reality, especially Ayumi, who struggled with math. Hearing her complaints, Uka immediately offered her notes. Satoru then suggested they all study together at a family restaurant, and they invited Miura as well. Satoru and Ayumi went to get drinks, leaving Miura and Uka alone. Uka tried to think of topics to discuss, but couldn't get Serena out of her mind. Coincidentally, Serena and her friends also arrived at the restaurant. Her friends, aware of her past with Miura, confronted him, but Miura ignored them. Concerned about the awkward atmosphere, Ayumi and Satoru discussed whether to change locations, but worried it might upset Uka. Meanwhile, Uka mentioned that she had a curfew at 5 p.m., which led to some girls mocking her. Serena, disliking their behavior, intervened by splashing a drink on them, causing the bullies to leave angrily. Surprisingly, Serena also disapproved of these girls. After venting her frustration, she greeted everyone and was about to leave. Uka quickly thanked her, but Serena felt guilty since those were also her friends. On their second encounter, Uka was deeply impressed by Serena's charm and even saw traces of Miura in her. The next day, Serena was splashed back by those girls. They were not really friends, just clinging to her because of her popularity. One girl, furious, raised her hand to slap Serena, but Uka suddenly stepped in front of her took the slap, and comforted Serena, saying she was used to it. She then told the girls to direct their displeasure at her instead. Miura then stepped behind Uka in a protective stance, and the group didn't dare to do anything more. After they left, Miura put his jacket on Serena, and Uka watched them walk away, feeling uneasy and curious about why they had broken up, but knowing she couldn't interfere. Today, Uka and her group were on duty. Miura was also forced to wear an apron. Uka noticed Serena being surrounded by those girls again, but this time they were trying to appease her to borrow homework. They even apologized to Uka for mocking her curfew, acknowledging that it showed her parents cared about her. Serena made up with them and apologized to Uka for involving her. Uka quickly shook her head, indicating she didn't mind. Serena then went to chat with Miura, and there seemed to be no awkwardness between them anymore. During a break, a classmate thought Uka would look good with a high ponytail and helped her tie one. It turned out to be quite fitting. Miura, seeing Uka making so many friends, felt reassured that she would be fine without him. Uka, however, interpreted this as him pushing her away. Uka got along increasingly well with her classmates, sometimes making mistakes due to her earnestness, but everyone was understanding and never mocked her. On her way back from the library, she saw some boys surrounding Miura, curious about his breakup with Serena. Miura let them speculate. Noticing Uka nearby, she quietly left, feeling out of place, imagining that Miura would show Serena a look she could never see. Suddenly, Miura caught her, claiming he was tired, and took her to his secret base, asking her to wake him up later. Uka was happy to help, though Miura brought up the incident of the slap. Hearing Uka say she hadn't actually been slapped before, he relaxed and then gently touched her slightly swollen left cheek, causing her face to flush. Miura, however, fell asleep without concern. Uka quietly left, trying to hypnotize herself into thinking that such things were probably normal for Miura since they lived in different worlds. Unexpectedly, she ran into Serena and her friends, who were also looking for Miura, even involving people from other classes. Serena guessed that Uka knew his whereabouts, having long suspected the fourth-floor warehouse. Uka inwardly noted that Serena truly was the one closest to Miura. Back in middle school, Miura used to rest on the rooftop, a fact only Serena knew. It seemed he used the same approach with both girls, who both appeared to enjoy it. Serena remarked that she was a lot like the current Uka during her own middle school days. Uka explained that it wasn't Miura who had told her, but that she had found out on her own, so their situations were not the same. Hearing this, Serena was stunned, and Uka thought she had said something wrong again. Just as she was about to apologize, people came over holding Serena's phone with Miura's photo on it. Right then, Miura came downstairs. A boy, enjoying the drama, told Miura that Serena obviously still liked him and suggested they get back together. Fortunately, a girl intervened, saying she also had the photo because it was said to bring popularity, given how well the graduation photo was taken. Serena explained she was just holding the photo for someone else without one, and then returned the jacket to Miura. The matter was ambiguously resolved, and everyone discussed keeping photos of people they thought were good-looking or popular. They asked Uka whose photo she wanted to keep, but before she could answer, Miura changed the subject, suggesting that the girl who tied Uka's hair continue doing so, stating he liked it regardless of whether Uka did. Uka was nearly overwhelmed by his words. The qualities Miura had just praised, directness, thoughtfulness, and courage, weren't they all her strengths? Finally, the midterms ended, and it was time to start preparing for the cultural festival. The first task was to decide on the committee members. Uka volunteered, surprising everyone. They asked Miura what he thought, but he said it was Uka's decision to make, and reminded her not to quit halfway. Thus, the committee was decided. Uka wanted to help everyone as much as she could. Her parents noticed that she had become more cheerful recently, and were delighted by her transformation. After taking on the task, Uka scoured the streets for necessary items, and once, she almost couldn't stop her bike because it was overloaded. Luckily, Miura was there to help her in time. Preparing for the cultural festival wasn't supposed to be Uka's job alone, but everyone ended up pushing the work onto her. They had decided to run a cafe but hadn't settled on anything else. And actually, they weren't too keen on a maid cafe. They just lacked other ideas. Then, someone from another class told them that a cafe was a good choice, since many classes wanted to do the same. Uka had created a very detailed proposal and presented it to the student council, securing this opportunity for their class. Meanwhile, Uka and Miura had a rare casual chat. Uka admired Miura for always living according to his own ideas and leading everyone in a direction different from the adults. Miura said that the rules weren't up to him, but needed to be created by Uka, the committee member. Inspired by his words, Uka started looking for cardboard boxes again. Unfortunately, this time she fell down a slope without Miura to catch her. Surprisingly, several girls came over, apologized for their previous laziness, and promised to help with the preparations. This boosted Uka's confidence even more. After the basic preparations were done, they needed to finalize the menu. Uka distributed the information she had gathered to everyone. Besides considering the budget, they needed to design a variety of offerings to attract customers. Uka's enthusiasm soon rubbed off on everyone else. After all, they had promised the student council to run a successful cafe. Uka gradually felt the power of unity, realizing how happy it was to discuss and make decisions together. Before they knew it, there were only 4 days left until the cultural festival. Uka rode her bike over the same slope again, but this time she wasn't alone. The whole class was energetically working. Future couples like Ayumi and Satoru were quickly warming up to each other. Seeing them, Uka couldn't help but think of Miura, who was currently having a great time talking with Serena. Both of them looked dazzling, and there was an atmosphere she couldn't intrude upon, but that was okay. Uka was shining brightly on her own too. Miura and others were filming a promotional video. Every year, the school chooses attractive students from each grade to shoot a video to be played at the cultural festival. Although Uka was thinking about Miura, she was primarily focused on her class's event. Tomorrow would be the cultural festival, and she was determined to make their cafe a huge success. The day of the cultural festival finally arrived. After school yesterday, Uka stayed behind alone to create a chalkboard art piece. When her classmates saw it in the morning, they were amazed by her artistic talent. Everyone had changed into maid costumes, and guests started pouring in. The cafe was very successful because of the attractive maids, an innovative menu, and delicious food. Even Uka was drafted to serve as a maid, and she was too busy to feel shy. After a busy spell, it was her turn to take a break, so she went downstairs just in time to catch the video playing. Serena looked adorable on camera, and soon it was Miura's turn. Unexpectedly, he referred to himself as Uka's commissioner. Uka was shocked, but reminded herself not to read too much into it, convinced that Miura didn't mean anything by it. However, Miura's comment led to problems. Several of Miura's fans ran up to ask Uka about her relationship with him and whether he was specifically assigned to look after her. After Uka affirmed this, they seemed relieved, thinking that once she became independent, Miura would stop paying attention to her. Uka was stunned by their conclusion, and the girl's words echoed in her ears. She knew Miura was only around out of a sense of duty and would eventually leave. Just as she was thinking this, Miura unexpectedly appeared in front of her, looking concerned. Uka brought up the Uka's commissioner comment, but Miura didn't react much since everybody else accepted his statement. Uka, unwilling to remain stagnant and not easily satisfied, stood up and told Miura she would seek more opportunities to talk with him in the future. Just then, they overheard some girls outside still discussing the commissioner issue, doubting Uka would ever be Miura's romantic partner. To Uka's surprise, Miura suddenly took her hand and let her out, ignoring everyone else as they left together. Afterwards, Tomoya found Miura and asked him what he thought. Was he going to push Uka away if she couldn't live without him, or would he protect her to the end? Miura didn't answer, possibly because he didn't know himself. Soon, it was time for the climax of the cultural festival, featuring a performance by enthusiastic high school girls, with Ayumi leading the dance. Satoru was in the audience, loudly cheering for Ayumi. However, Uka noticed that Serena seemed to be in trouble. She didn't want to participate in the next event, so the teacher asked her to find someone to replace her. Unexpectedly, Uka volunteered herself. Although she knew she couldn't replace Serena, she thought she could at least highlight the others. Thus, Uka ended up on the perfect couple show, stiffly enduring the host's offensive remarks. She couldn't help thinking that if Serena were here, Miura would definitely jump up to defend her. The next second, Miura did just that. He jumped up and declared that Uka was withdrawing. With his support, tears streamed down Uka's face, as if answering Tomoya's earlier question. Miura told Uka that he would always watch over her, until the end. Uka's class won a special award at the cultural festival, the only first-year class to do so, all thanks to Uka. The teacher announced a meal treat for the class in celebration. After a fulfilling dinner, some classmates suggested continuing the fun at a karaoke bar. However, Uka had a curfew at home and had to leave alone by 5 p.m. Unexpectedly, Miura followed her out. With some time to spare, Miura asked if she wanted to visit the arcade, a place Uka had never been. Her enthusiastic response made Miura laugh, and Uka couldn't help but feel hopeful that perhaps Miura had feelings for her too. Meanwhile, at school, Serena and a friend overheard people speculating about her relationship with Miura. Serena quickly denied it. As everyone seemed to support her pairing with Miura, her friend jokingly suggested they should just get back together. Suddenly, a group of girls confronted Serena, blaming her for their friend's breakup because a senior had complimented Serena on being cute. Speechless, Serena faced the situation passively. Just as the girls were about to get physical, Uka and others arrived. The girls left reluctantly due to Miura's presence, threatening Serena that she wouldn't last long at the school. Miura decided to talk to the senior involved, while the others comforted Serena. This wasn't Serena's first time dealing with such issues. She had been a target since she was young due to her attractiveness. Back in middle school, when a female classmate was harassed for talking to a boy with a girlfriend, Uka had stepped in, only to become the target herself, leading to her isolation by the entire class. It was Miura who had come to her aid then, and after he stood up for her, the others backed off. Although the girl she helped never apologized and avoided her, Serena understood and appreciated the gesture. Miura was drawn to her understanding nature, and the rooftop became their meeting spot. Miura even declined a trip with other classmates because he didn't want to leave Serena alone. He kissed her impulsively, and since then, Serena had become increasingly attached to Miura, but their underlying issues remained unresolved. When Miura was absent from school, Serena continued to face bullying. During these times, she desperately missed him and realized her dependence on him was greater than she thought. Eventually, Miura noticed and took action. However, Serena heard rumors that Miura was dating her out of pity. Even though she knew that wasn't his character, she couldn't help but overthink. She told Miura that she couldn't manage without him. Their relationship ended partly because of this. After hearing Serena's past, Uka felt sympathetic. She then asked if Serena still liked Miura. Serena denied it, but tears rolled down her cheeks, revealing the truth even Uka could see through. The teacher came over to comfort Serena, telling her not to worry, and Uka reassured her that Miura was still there. Fearing that Uka might misunderstand her relationship with Miura, Serena panicked. Uka, sensing her distress, also lied, claiming her feelings for Miura were more of respect and admiration, not romantic love. Both were being considerate of each other's feelings. Back in the classroom, Uka learned that Miura had argued with the senior because of Serena, which made her mistakenly think his feelings for Serena lingered. Believing she should step back, Uka decided to withdraw. With the summer vacation starting, classmates invited each other out, including the popular Miura. Uka, not wanting to be in his way, greeted him and left. During the holiday, she couldn't stop thinking about Miura and Serena. Suddenly, she noticed some girls in yukatas and remembered it was the day of the summer festival. She assumed Miura and Serena would be there on a date, thinking seeing them together might help her move on. Unexpectedly, Ayumi came to invite her to hang out, brightening Uka's mood instantly. Unseen by them, Miura watched them leave. The festival was lively. Uka initially thought Ayumi planned to meet Satoru there, but Ayumi said she hadn't arranged to meet him and wanted to spend the day with Uka. Touched, Uka was enjoying her time when she spotted Serena with friends, not with Miura. Serena was telling her friends she believed Miura was probably with Uka. Uka considered clarifying things, but Ayumi returned with cotton candy before she could decide. Suddenly, Satoru appeared, insisting on joining them, leaving Ayumi to handle this unexpected complication. Watching them leave, Uka smiled helplessly and then started to wander the festival alone. She felt content simply admiring these shining people from afar, thinking this way no one would get hurt. Yet, she couldn't stop her tears. Suddenly, she heard Miura's voice. When Uka saw him, she ran, but Miura quickly caught up and wiped the tears from her face. Uka didn't want to talk much and asked him to convey her thanks to Ayumi before trying to leave again. However, Miura insisted on walking her home, saying she could let go of his hand if she disliked it. How could she not like him? Miura changed the subject, asking if she knew what mobile phones were for, keeping in touch during holidays. He revealed that he had also planned to invite her today, but Ayumi had beaten him to it. He reminded her again that she could let go if she didn't like it, but Uka couldn't bring herself to do so. Suddenly, she thought of Serena and quickly let go of Miura's hand. At that moment, she realized she couldn't give up on Miura. Did Serena also realize Uka was lying? Uka frantically searched the crowd for Serena, wanting to confess her true feelings. She finally found Ayumi and Serena, who were also looking for her. Without waiting for Ayumi's question, Uka called out to Serena, telling her that she liked Miura and apologized for lying earlier. Serena, hearing Uka's honesty, showed a sincere and radiant smile, acknowledging her own feelings for Miura. They agreed to openly like Miura together. Just then, fireworks began to light up the sky. At that moment, the happiest was Ayumi, relieved to no longer be caught in the middle. Uka unexpectedly joined Ayumi and others for a beach outing, and almost the entire class was there. The girls were in pretty swimsuits, leaving Uka feeling out of place in her shorts and t-shirt. Miura, unsurprisingly, pinched Uka's cheek, making her look at him. Later, Ayumi and the girls went into the water, not wanting Uka to feel lonely on the shore. They returned to invite her to buy drinks together. They ran into the girls who had previously troubled Serena and a senior. Uka immediately stepped up to protect Serena, but Miura told her it wasn't necessary because he would protect Serena. Uka felt redundant and decided to wander around. To avoid losing contact, she exchanged phone numbers with Ayumi and Serena. Uka and Serena now shared a bond over their liking for Miura. Meanwhile, some boys asked Miura if he had really caressed Uka's face at the summer festival, as classmates from another class had seen. Miura didn't deny it, and the boys found it ridiculous to take care of Uka even during holidays, thinking it unfair to Serena. They questioned whom Miura would choose. Just then, Tomoya approached and declared that the answer was clear since Miura had always protected only one person. At the same time, Uka was gazing at the sea, surprised she could enjoy the beach with peers. Her last visit was in her first year of middle school with her parents. She unexpectedly met her middle school bullies. They still had nothing nice to say, muttering insults at her. However, Uka no longer wanted to run away and confronted them. Her first question was asking if they were doing well. She chased after them when they tried to leave, having not seen them at school recently. The lead girl revealed they had dropped out, blaming Uka for being unable to stay at school. Uka apologized reflexively. Then, the bullies' boyfriends, who had previously cornered Uka, showed up and were frightened upon hearing she was close to Miura. Regardless, they mockingly complimented Uka for having improved, which surprisingly made her very happy. Down below, Ayumi and the others noticed the scene unfolding above. Initially, they wanted to help, but seeing Uka handling the situation well, they were impressed. Serena felt inspired, realizing she couldn't remain stagnant. Then Miura asked to talk to her alone. Uka watched as they walked away from the crowd to the rocks. Serena, knowing what Miura might say, took the initiative to confess her ongoing feelings for him. She admitted that his attention had made her mistakenly think he reciprocated those feelings, but she now understood that Miura's protection was due to his concern that Uka might get involved. She only wanted to know if Miura had ever liked her. Miura responded affirmatively, though he indicated those feelings were in the past. The conversation cleared the air. Serena acted nonchalant but began to cry as soon as she turned away. This allowed her to finally let go. Meanwhile, Uka was approached by Miura before they could talk. Two boys confronted Miura about why he had broken up with Serena. Uka was shocked and also questioned why. Miura simply told her not to worry about it. Serena knew why Miura chose Uka. She believed Uka grew stronger around Miura, whereas she herself became weaker. After receiving a text from Serena, Uka sent a lengthy reply, not realizing that Serena's message was meant to assure her that having Uka as a rival was genuinely a good thing, and Uka had no reason to feel inferior. Since exchanging contact details with her friends, Uka always felt happy receiving their texts. Ayumi was affectionate, and Serena was nurturing, often concerned about Uka's romantic life. However, Uka now most wanted Miura's contact details to ask him directly, but she needed a reason to meet him first. Unable to think of an excuse or how to ask him out, she decided to clear her mind at a bookstore. Unexpectedly, Miura was at the bookstore entrance and followed her inside. The tall Miura even helped her reach a book she wanted, leaving Uka visibly surprised. She and Miura ended up at a cafe alone, and Uka couldn't help but notice that Miura seemed more handsome than ever, likely because it had been a while since they last met. Miura asked her what she had said to those three people at the beach. Uka honestly replied that she had just asked if they were doing well because she hadn't seen them at school recently. She then learned they had dropped out, a fact Miura already knew. This revealed to Uka that she no longer cared about those people and had moved on from her past shadows. Uka admitted that since starting high school, she hadn't really cared about them because she was too focused on catching up to Miura. Although Miura was initially surprised by her words, he quickly accepted them and encouraged her to spend more time with Ayumi and the others, advising her not to overthink things. As Miura's friends urged him to leave, Uka realized she hadn't exchanged contact details with him yet and hurried after him. She saw a girl flirting with Miura, but still went forward to ask for his contact. Unbeknownst to her, Miura had been waiting for her to ask. He told his friends to go ahead, took Uka's phone, and entered his number. He then told her to be more spirited than before and not to be afraid of anything, promising to always rush to her side when needed. He expressed his hope that Uka would think of him first, no matter what happens. These words gave Uka immense strength. Since meeting Miura, she felt as if her life had been rewritten. Returning home happy, her father noticed her uplifted mood. He was aware of his daughter's recent changes, happy that she was going out with friends, but this made him feel a bit lonely as an old father.